Evidently ready.
Two. It's going. It didn't give me.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa from Craftin' and Cruisin', and I am in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, with my sweet friend and fabulous watercolorist, Mary Ann Boyson. When you hop on, please let Rodney know you're on. I can't see comments because he's got the camera. And if you watch the replay, please hashtag replay so I'll know you were here and can properly welcome you. So we came to Chagrin Falls last year for Kathy D and Mike's 4th of July party, Royal Funky Junk. You're fixing to get wet, Rodney. They have a big 4th of July party every year, and we came, and when I found out that Kathy lived in Chagrin Falls, I was so excited because I had never heard of Chagrin Falls before until many years ago at Ghost Ranch, New Mexico, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Mary Ann was there, and she told me she lived in Chagrin Falls, and I was just enamored with the name of her town. I thought it sounded like a Hallmark movie. And then I saw some of her paintings, and I said, yes, it is like a Hallmark movie, and someday I'm going to go. Well, then, when I started following Kathy D. Domenico with Royal Funky Junk during the pandemic, and I was not doing a lot of painting, and I found Kathy D., and she said she lived in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, and I thought, what are the odds? Out of all the places in the world she could live, she lives in Chagrin Falls. So, when she invited us to come to her 4th of July fireworks show last year, I got in touch with Mary Ann. I think we figured out it had been like 22 years, maybe.
I can't remember.
Yeah, since we were in Ghost Ranch together, and she invited us over, and we came and spent a lot of time with her last year. Since then, she's lost her dear husband, and but she's still here, has a gorgeous home with a yard y'all would not believe. Looks like something out of Better Homes and Garden. And so I called her and asked her, could we see her this time and maybe interview her? You all know when I get on and do a watercolor, I always talk about Mary Ann Boyson. In fact, last night when I did my live and was doing a watercolor, I talked about her and some things I learned from her. And I told you that I was going to interview her today. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to ask her some questions. Rodney, make sure that Mary Ann is clearly in view.
He is right in the picture.
And so we're going to start out with, just tell me about you and your family.
Oh, well, I have a son and a daughter who were born, I'm originally from Mississippi, a southerner, and my son and daughter were born in Dearborn, Michigan.
Wow.
Now my daughter is a Yankee, and my son has moved to Georgia, so he is now a southerner, and I have one young grandson down there, and I have two grandsons up here in the north, one right here in Chagrin Falls, and the other in Columbus. And they're finally gainfully employed, so we can... that's over.
You get to see them a lot?
I see the one in Chagrin Falls frequently. He wants to always have dinner.
Aww.
He's learning to cook. He was the picky eater. Now he's learning to cook and really enjoying it.
Good.
So, and he's 32, so it's about time. But neither one of them are married, and so we don't know if I'll ever have a great grandchild.
That's okay. You might. They might surprise you one day.
Right.
We're pretty far from the camera, so you'll need to make sure you speak loud enough.
Okay. So, who would you say, if anybody, really inspired you to pursue watercolor?
Well, there was a man here in Chagrin Falls whom I admired, and he taught watercolor, but his prerequisite said, prerequisite required, and I thought, well, let's see. I graduated in advertising design, which I guess would be graphic design now. This is before computers, folks. And so I thought, I don't have any, I've never studied watercolor, except I took a class in college that I, didn't get anything out of. So I didn't take his class for a while. I took a class in batik and one in silk screen, and decided right away they were not the choice that I wanted to make. So finally, in 1974, I just, at that time I'm 36 years old, so I got a little bit of a late start. So I loved it so much that one friend and I would go out at least 2 days a week and film all day long for subject matter, for painting, and then I would paint 10 hours a day. My kids were in school all day, and I wanted desperately to make a career out of that. And, after a while I did. So I entered some national shows and was fortunate enough to win some awards and sell a few paintings, and there you have it.
So you were mostly self-taught?
No, direction, I had a class with him every week, and then, I would paint on my own.
Was there any famous artists that inspired you to really want to pursue the medium, or was it just something you had an interest in?
Well, I always loved Leonardo da Vinci and his creativity, and then I studied with several well-known watercolorists, one being Charles Reed, who was in Connecticut, and another from the West Coast, and I can't remember his name, one from Pennsylvania, and I can't remember the others. So, I guess I developed a style that I wasn't aware I was developing until somebody said, I would know your watercolors anywhere. So I'm thinking, I wonder how that is.
That's cool.
Yeah,
So, how old were you when you started doing any kind of art?
Oh, I was in grade school.
You were?
I loved to draw. Didn't take any painting classes in high school, and took a few in college. And I was at SMU, and at that time they didn't have a very large art department. I understand it's really big now. And I transferred to Florida State University because it was close to Pensacola Beach Naval Air Station, where my fiance at the time was being, was there. And so they had a wonderful art department, a commercial art, because I figured if I never got married, I needed to make a living. So that's how I got, started.
So then watercolor was more in your adult years, young adult years when you started? Okay. So let's kind of pause on how you started watercolor and tell them how we met.
We met at the Ghost Ranch.
Which is what? Because some people won't know what
the Ghost Ranch, don't ask me. I mean, it's I don't know. It's in a beautiful part of, is that New Mexico?
New Mexico.
And it's where Georgia O'Keeffe painted, or nearby. Her museum is nearby in Santa Fe. And we met on a workshop. And basically I don't mean to sound snooty, but I wanted to go to the Ghost Ranch, and I wanted to go with a group, and I saw that this person was giving a class out there, so I said, I'm going to sign up because I'll be with the Booth artists. And
Right.
so that's how I got there.
And that person was my art teacher from Nashville, Gail McDaniel. So that's how I met Mary Ann. And of course, when we first started the workshop, we didn't know each other. But what would happen daily was that when we would have breaks, Mary Ann would take her easel and her sketchbook and her portable watercolor set with brushes, and she would go out somewhere on the ranch and do plein air painting, which has always intimidated the heck out of me. I did do one at Ghost Ranch, but I didn't enjoy it. I'm more the kind that wants to take photo references, and then back in my studio, then I can do watercolor. Mary Ann is so incredibly talented, and I mentioned this last night on my live about looking through her sketchbooks that she takes with her when she travels, and she would literally sit in airports, anywhere you were, and sketch something that looked like something out of an art book. We're not talking stick figures, we're talking something that was amazing in perspective. And then she would write notes out to the side about where she was and what the colors were, what the weather was. So her sketchbooks are works of art in themselves. And then she would sometimes paint paintings from those. And I was in awe when I would walk up and stand over her shoulder and watch her sketching the vistas around Ghost Ranch. I was just amazed. And you did that on the daily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we met, and then I started following her website and just have loved her ever since.
Thank you.
So tell us where in all of the world you've painted, where you've taught workshops, and maybe what your favorite place to paint was.
Well, I took 3 groups of artists to France on 3 different occasions, and we painted in Monet's gardens, and that was one trip. And first we were in Paris for a day or 2, then we drove west toward a little town called Renazé. Stayed in a barn that was 300 years old.
Oh, wow.
Had thick stone walls, and the upstairs, which had been the hayloft, was the dining room, and it was as long as the barn. There was a kitchen at one end and a bedroom at the other for the people that lived there. They had a home, and they had other places to sleep. But we sort of took over the entire barn. Her husband would make 7-course meals at night, and then he would pack up lunches of the leftovers and make some other thing for the next day's trip out into the country to paint. That was fun. And I took 2 groups to southern France to Arles and Cassis. Cassis being right on the Mediterranean, Arles a little bit further inland. And that's probably my favorite place. I did go to Italy, and then I was asked to go to South Africa to volunteer in an AIDS hospice, where the children were not necessarily suffering from AIDS. They were AIDS orphans, but some had AIDS, but we treated them all the same. And I was asked to paint the parent of the children, of 1 or 2 of the children who was dying of AIDS. And I thought, wow, I am not a portrait painter. And then she's like, oh my God, give me some advice here. So I painted this little girl and gave it to her, and I painted the mother. And then she said, "Well, you paint my little girl. Her name is Happiness."
Oh.
And so I did. Now these little portraits took me. I paint without drawing all the time, so they didn't take me more than about 20 minutes to do a small little watercolor of their face.
Can't imagine.
Well, that's called 20 minutes and 40 years.
Yeah.
And then all the children wanted to be painted. So I painted 30 or 40 children, and then the nurses and the aides were to be painted, and I painted them. Many of them are on my website, maboyson.com. So if you ever want to see all those happy faces, and they were happy faces, that's where they are. So I did that twice. So that was all my trips have been great.
Special. Yeah.
You mentioned your website. Is your website a place where people can purchase paintings and so forth on the website?
No, from there they can go to Fine Art America. There's a link right at the top of my front page that goes to Fine Art America. And I have about, 100 paintings on there, I think. I'm not sure. Because I wrote a book one year for my grandchildren. And I had, in my time of going out in the country with an artist friend of mine to photograph, I must have had 10,000 slides. And so, and as you know, no matter how you store them, they're going to get moldy. And this was before digital cameras. I hate to be giving my age here. But, so I cleaned them up. I cleaned them up, and I put them on Fine Art America. And I also put them on Shutterfly so I could build this book. And did I show you that last year when you were here?
I don't know if you did or not.
Well, it's a big coffee table size book. So.
Yes, you did. You sure did.
So, because many of the paintings on my website have been sold. And I used to be the manager of the website, and I have, during COVID and the whole bit, I have forgotten how to even do that anymore. So it is what it is. It's staying that way. And I don't, people always want to say, oh, we can give you better coverage. And I said, I'm not paying anybody to do that. I'm retired, really. So.
And I mentioned her website last night, but I'm going to tell you again. It's M.A. for Mary Ann Boyson, Boysen, as in Nancy.com. And I encouraged you all last night to get on there and go around and look at her sketchbooks, look at the different places she's painted.
Oh, and by the way, there are, I used to have another website called watercolorpaintingtips.com. That is incorporated now into the one website. So there are many, many, many free painting lessons
There you go.
on there.
I'll be on that. I hope you will too. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but did you paint a lot of portraits, or was it mostly just the children in South Africa?
Just the children.
Yeah.
I did a couple. I did a few dog portraits and a few cat portraits, and that's it. I have a close friend, who is really a portrait artist for people and animals, and being local and friendly, I didn't want to step on her toes because it was not my favorite thing to do. Mm-hmm. So I stick with things that don't talk back.
So that was going to be one of my questions, your favorite subject matter. So definitely things that don't talk back.
Yeah. Well, in painting portraits of people, I mean, you can paint a portrait of a dog or a cat and it looks like the dog or cat.
Right.
You paint a picture of a person, what they don't realize is you see yourself backwards in the mirror.
That's true.
And so if you have sort of a lopsided face, it isn't going to look right to them. And I just thought, I don't need that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that sort of flipped, but...
And with the portrait, you have a perception of yourself in your
Right.
mind that may not be exactly what you look like.
Right.
That's right.
And if somebody paints someone exactly like almost every time you see some picture, somebody takes a picture, somebody says, "Oh, that looks terrible" of themselves.
Right. We're
Because
our
So-
worst critics.
they're not seeing themselves
Yeah.
correctly.
That's right.
So,
So what would you say is your favorite subject? I mean, is it florals? Is it landscape?
I love to do flowers, but what I have become more well known for lately in the latter part of my painting career were bird nests.
And wait till you see, because I'm going to show you one in her house. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
So, and a lot of those are on the Fine Art America site as well, and because you can get a link on the very front page of my website to Fine Art America.
So we know your paintings on Fine Art America. I think you have some in a local gallery here, don't you? In Chagrin Falls. Are there any other places that display your work?
Not anymore. I
Okay.
used to travel all over taking paintings here and there, and I don't want to do that anymore. So
Yeah.
I took them back.
Gotcha. So when you're teaching students, and I know you're not doing that right now, but when you were teaching students and they came to you just completely fresh, new, never having done watercolor, what type of teaching approach did you have?
Well, I usually, golly, I always did a demo
Okay.
of something. And then it would be the beginning of a painting more than the entire painting, because that would have taken up the entire time that they were there. So I would help them out with the beginning washes, because I always add a wash, 3 washes to my paper, pale washes, and then treat the paper as if that's white. So when you go to paint your subject, there's this glow to it, rather than that stark blue against stark white, or, there's always this little play of color. So I would get them started with that, and then we would have probably a still life to work from. Now, sometimes people wanted to bring their own subject matter in a photograph, and that was perfectly fine. I appreciated the fact that they didn't want to copy me or copy any, other artists. That was a real no-no.
Well, right. Still is if you're not careful. So I remember you telling me last time that your students were not allowed to use a pencil to draw. Now y'all know that have followed me that I cannot not use a pencil. That's who I am.
Well, I had a weekly class, and they showed up at my gallery, and I said, okay, who has a pencil? Who has pencils? And so they all said, oh, I do. So I grabbed them all, and I said, we're going to go out to paint. They were panicked, and they did the best painting ever that they had ever done that day, because you look for shapes and you decide where maybe the center of where you want the focal point, and you start with like a window of a house, or and then you build out from that. And I was just blown away with how good they did. And I hope, and when my husband and I would travel on cruises and stuff, and we'd have a short time in a port, like in Greece or somewhere, and I would go into the local town, sit on the stoop by a gallery, and paint what I saw across the way, because I would paint in my sketchbook. So my sketchbooks all were done without drawing. And it's really more simple than you think.
So she says.
Right.
So she says. I'm going to put that to test one day, but so far I hadn't been able to do it. Some people, I find, and I'm sure you did in all the years you've done watercolor, are very intimidated by watercolor. They're afraid of watercolor because they probably heard, like I did all my life, oh, watercolor is the hardest medium. And I used to think, how hard can it be with water and paint and paper? Until I started watercolor. And then I kind of got it until I persisted. And now I'm the one to say, don't let it intimidate you. It's supposed to be fun. But why do you think, compared to oils and acrylics, that people would say watercolor, which I think is the most forgiving, is the hardest?
Well, I can tell you that, you know, I painted in watercolor for 40 years, and then I decided I would try oils. And I thought they were difficult because it's the reverse of the way you approach a painting, and you can't, you don't get the glazes that you can get in watercolor. You have to do all the work yourself in oils. In watercolor, water does half of the work for you. And so many people, when they begin watercolor, they want to do the detail, and I always say the detail comes at detail. And
Cute. Got it.
because that's why I start them off with the washes, and then, you know, and then we do the big stuff first, and then you can work on the detail.
Right.
So I oils I didn't care for. I did quite a few, sold a few. But the gallery that handles my watercolors here says, Marianne, why don't you go back to watercolor? And so that, I guess that's, she knew what she was talking about.
Backtracking a little bit, when you were talking about your techniques, I remember two things. Marianne came to Nashville and taught a workshop. And two techniques I remember her doing that I have yet to do myself, and I need to remember that now, is one, you would paint the back of the paper with water and then flip it over to the front of the paper and put water on that. Is that what you do every time before you start your washes? Mm-hmm. Did you let it dry at all on the back first?
Mm-hmm. Wetting it, you know, if you wet one side, it's going to buckle because it expands. So then you, and if you're, I use a plexiglass, and when you wet one side and you lay it down and wet the other side, it flattens out and it's like a magnet.
Yeah.
I let it dry a little bit till it loses its shine on the front. You can even wipe it with a sponge or a towel. And then I start.
Okay. So I remember that, and then I remember you taking a brush with a real specific point and showing us how to do trees, like the little pine trees, like the ones in the distance would be lighter and the ones that came closer would be darker. And I remember you dropping in water first with your brush, like in the shape of the tree, and then dropping in the paint and just letting it run.
Now, that's when I say watercolor does it half of it for you sometimes.
Right.
Or I could paint the tree, and while it's still wet, drop in water. The reverse, it doesn't matter. And then a lot of the pigment runs to the outside edge. It's soft, you know, and it looks round. So
Yeah.
that's you know, one of the little techniques.
Yeah, I do remember those. Okay, when you're doing a painting, do you prefer to use just a small number of paints to try to get the effect you want, or do you feel like you need to have lots of paints with the different shades?
Well, like I said, I start my paintings with 3 different colors, a yellow, a pink, and a blue. Yellow, red, and blue. And then whatever the subject requires on top of that, the 3 that I use are medium tones. So if you need something darker, you need to either do many, many, many glazes, or you need to select a darker pigment.
Okay. So you don't necessarily limit yourself to just one red, one yellow, one blue. Okay.
But with those, I can mix a lot of different colors.
Right.
Because if you go in the art stores, there's shelves of colors, every hue you
so
can think
many
of.
And every artist has his own favorites. You know, like my favorite I developed over years of painting. I developed a likeness for a liking, of these three pigments. They are transparent, non-staining pigments.
And what are those three?
It's quinacridone gold,
Okay.
cobalt blue hue, which
Oh,
doesn't
I've got that.
have the tiniest bit of red in it that cobalt blue does.
Oh, gotcha.
It's just ever so different, or slightly different. And then opera. It's like, you
Yes,
know, a
I
hot pink.
remember you.
Hot pink.
That's the first time I'd ever seen opera used was with you. Yeah. Okay. How would you say, because I know you've been doing some things with acrylics, compare watercolor and acrylics?
Oh dear. Well, acrylics, you can paint them two different ways. You can paint them like a watercolor by thinning them down, or you can paint them heavily, you know, with a palette knife even, to make them look like oils. So the bird nest that you say you're going to show everybody was done in acrylic, but it was not liquid acrylics that you can buy. It was tube acrylics, heavy body acrylics that I watered down, and I called it aqueous acrylics.
Oh, I like that.
So, so I could do glaze after glaze, just like I do in regular watercolor.
But
But
why
it's-
did you choose to do the bird's nest in acrylics and not watercolor?
It was really a trial, and it won Best in Show, so I was thrilled. And in fact, when I went to pick up my one rejection, I thought that was it, and it had done Best in Show. And I thought, my kids say, "Well, what do you know?" You know. So,
Okay. We talked about how people could purchase your paintings. The last one I want to ask you, because I want them to see a little bit of your work before we go to dinner. If somebody came to you for advice who maybe has little to no training art-wise, and definitely watercolor-wise, but they really want to do watercolor, what advice would you give them in starting out?
wow. I don't know. I'm trying to think. To not listen to the people who say it's the hardest medium to paint in, because they are, depending on the surface you paint on, they are very forgiving. I started painting on watercolor canvas, which is really forgiving. I also painted, before that I painted on, I did demonstrations for a manufacturer in England that manufactures Mockingford papers, which are cotton, and those papers are very forgiving. I also painted on Strathmore 500 surface
Wow.
board, which you could tear apart
Yes.
and
Yeah, I
paint
did that.
on either side, because they were the same on all sides. So I have a lot of paintings on that.
We did pour painting on those.
Oh, did
Did we do that when you were at Ghost Ranch?
No.
One of the years I was at Ghost Ranch, we used that and tore them apart, and then we poured.
Yeah, that's nice. But didn't you find when you pull them apart, they sort of curled?
They
Did you
did.
have to wet on that side to make them?
Yeah,
go
but when
back?
you're
Yeah.
pouring paint, they get so wet because the paint is so thin, you know, and you're pouring a lot at
Yeah.
one time
Right.
before you go back
What a
in and
waste
do
of
the
paint.
detail.
Beautiful,
It is.
beautiful results, but
Yeah.
a waste of a lot of paint.
It's just
Oh,
a
man.
whole different technique. But I've been telling people when I've been doing watercolor, if you decide that watercolor is something you're really interested in, invest in good paints
Yeah.
and in good
Good
brushes.
and good paper.
Not student grade watercolors,
Right.
but professional grade. You'll pay more money. You'll pay more money for good brushes and good paper. You'll get better results, and they'll last you a lot longer.
Yeah. The paper and the brushes are very important. If you're really just learning, I would say some of the student grades, if you didn't want to spend a lot of money, the student grade paints are okay for a little while, but once you get the hang of the brush and everything, invest in good. They can be acrylic brushes. I don't mean that they are for acrylics, but they are the artificial.
Right. Synthetic.
Right. Thank you, synthetic brushes.
Yes. Yeah.
As long as they come to a fine point, and the flat brushes come to a very fine chisel edge and everything, and then periodically, you know, I painted so much. If I was going to do a demonstration somewhere, I would go out and buy myself a new brush. I always painted better with the new brush. And don't dry your brushes with the bristles standing up, because the water goes down underneath that metal ferrule, and then it takes all of the paint, the finish off of the brush, and then suddenly the bristles fall out. So treat your brushes kindly and rinse them and hang them up.
And don't
With
leave
the
them
bristles,
sitting in a container of water.
Right,
either,
it just,
'cause if-
you don't want them,
Right.
misshapen.
Is there anything else you want to add about your time of painting, or suggestions, or helpful advice before we close out?
No. Just enjoy it. Don't take photographs that have tons of detail in them when you're starting. It would be better to take pictures close up of some things, so that there are very few detail to deal with, until you really get the hang of using your brushes. One of the best things I ever did was take a class with a Japanese master, and I really learned how to use my brush. And though I don't paint in a Japanese style, but she really taught us how to use our brush, and for many effects.
And sometimes the more you leave out,
Yeah,
the better your painting.
the simplicity.
Which is hard for me, because I'm very
Sometimes-
photorealistic. I'm trying to get looser.
Some of the worst mistakes I ever made was not learning to know when I'm tired, or when the painting is finished.
Yes.
You can go in there and really wreck a good painting
Right.
if you don't quit before you think you should.
There was a lady that took classes with me. She's in heaven now, but she would hear Gail say things like to somebody, "Now, if I were you, I wouldn't add anything else to that. Sometimes less is more." And Lucinda was sitting over there, and she'd say, "Don't over booger it." So that I've kind of adopted that term now, is don't over booger your painting. Many times less is more. And I also remember the phrase that we are painters of shapes.
That's
So
right.
if you will look, instead of looking at the detail in something, if you will look at shapes.
Shapes around the subject.
Right.
Learn what negative painting is,
Yes.
and paint the negative shapes instead of the shape that you think you should be painting. You will. That's part of learning to paint without drawing.
And that you have to retrain your brain to do that. Let me tell you. I got that book, Drawing from the Right Side of Your Brain.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, I got like 2 lessons into it, and I put the book aside and I said, I can't do this. And as much as I've tried negative painting, I still struggle with negative painting because my eye wants to look at what my brain thinks it's supposed to be seeing and painting instead of, I'm not looking at that, I'm looking at everything around that. One of those exercises in that book was to write the letters of your name, paint the letters or
Right.
write the letters of your name in negative. So
Right.
don't draw an L, a block L, sketch or shade around what would be the block L,
Right,
and then what
exactly.
would be the block I. And I did that like 2 letters, and then I was like, no, just give me an S and let me shade it. I don't want to do that negative. So you're precious.
Thank you.
You're so extremely talented and somebody I look up to very much. And I appreciate your time and your advice and your hints. And if we have time, what time does it run?
328.
Okay, we've got just a few minutes. We can run in and take a little gander at some of your paintings because I don't want them to miss that.
Okay.
All right, so can you just carry that, Rodney, in there and we can
Well, there's always that chance.
show the paintings?
Okay, I'm gonna take this tray in with
Let me open the door. Y'all can see her yard as we walk through too. How gorgeous it is.
the side bed is gorgeous.
Show them the zinnias right there. I think those zinnias are beautiful.
Got some pretty zinnias in the yard.
She's got pasta around
Got
the
these
front.
tiny little things decorating the table here.
And our napkins she had out here, look, said, I made my favorite thing for dinner tonight, a reservation. And that's what she did for us. We're all going to dinner on a reservation. Okay, let's go in here and check out some paintings. I'm going to let Mary Ann decide where, when, and what.
Oh, you're gonna have a little trouble with the skylights.
Oh, it's
Well, what about starting in here?
it's casting.
Oh, it'll be forever.
Yeah, we can.
Ron, you come.
I can get right here.
Yeah, this is the bird nest that I was talking about. I don't know. Oh, this is better now that the sun.
You
went
guys,
behind it.
can
Yeah.
you even believe?
Went behind a cloud, and she was talking about detail. Take a close look.
Did you painting, Marion?
That's negative painting. Partially.
I was going to say, all those little limbs are negative.
Some
Even got some
were masked
feathers
out,
mid-air.
and then the rest was negative.
I love the little feathers falling down. And then get the top left corner, Rodney. See where there's just
Those
the
those
implication
three
of
of the different washes. You can
Right.
see the pink and the gold and the blue.
but you can tell they're in the distance because they're lighter.
Right. See now the sunlight.
Sun's back out.
Is-
And
Conflicting
look, did
things.
you
for me.
get the little nest at the bottom? I
Yeah,
think they're
yep.
so sweet.
Well, those were the reason I thought it would be kicked out because they're really too close to the edge.
But you got 3, and that's good. You got an odd number. And what about this one? Look at the lace.
I painted that in a workshop in Springfield, Ohio, where the room was too small and I had 25 students. And
see the whole thing.
so I had to put the vase and the doily on the floor.
And you guys look, you can see through the glass, the lace. Look at how realistic this glass is, and yet every single bit of it has color in it. But you know it's crystal. And show them this right here. Last night I was talking about a bloom. Well, there you go. That's an example of a bloom right there.
Where the paint runs up to a dry spot and
Or
stops.
it's almost dry, but not quite dry, and then it blooms out. Okay, now what?
Well, you want to see what I'm doing now?
Yes.
I'm doing crafts.
I know she's doing crafts like
for the
where?
Children's Guild, and this is my Drunken Santa the morning after.
Drunken Santa. OMG. That is precious.
The morning after.
He is so cute.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the morning after Christmas, but the morning after something.
So
After he delivered
cute.
all the...
Now, what is the body? Just like a cardboard?
Actually, I think it's a plastic bottle
Oh.
that I, instead of making him fat and everything, I just
Yeah.
had it. And these are braided. He's got leather shoes, leather
My
boots,
goodness, Miriam, that's
and
adorable.
leather gloves.
Little mittens on.
Now, what was it
And
you
this
were...
is, see, he's been down all the chimneys with the
He
soot.
has.
A little sip his
That's
beer.
right. That's exactly right. Tell me about this piece. This is
This
interesting.
was done by a local artist who has lupus. And she's famous for her double wall pottery. And this is the only one I could afford. Her name is Tracy Amin, and with one slab of clay, she makes double wall pottery, which is an ancient. Her name is Tracy Amin. I guess you could look her up under her name. She does have a website, but she's got lupus, and I organized a benefit for her about 10 years ago now, and to help her pay her mortgage because she would be sick. But now she's not a lot better, but she is teaching this summer.
Really?
So she has this,
It's very
That
pretty.
is gorgeous.
her big pots for, and they're thousands of dollars.
So she made that one right there, the big one.
Yeah, she made that, and I said, "Oh, Tracy, how much I want to buy that?" She said, "Oh, you can have it. It's cracked." I said, yeah, "That's what I love about it."
No.
And my husband's nephew is a woodworker over in Pennsylvania, and I sent him as good a drawing as I could of the base of this, and he sent me this thing to put it in. It's a perfect fit.
Perfect. Now, when we were here last year, you were making something. I'm sure you did that birdhouse. Go show the birdhouse.
Yep.
But
Well,
you were doing something that you had on your table upstairs.
Well-
some kind of unique flowers or something.
She was trying to make flowers out of orange peels or tangerine peels.
I don't remember. I made those.
These flowers? Oh my word!
Those
Notice
are
the
from,
stem on top from a pumpkin.
crepe paper.
Really? Look at these flowers she made, you guys, from crepe paper. Those are stunning.
We and that sponge is a natural sea sponge that they're sitting in.
Oh, cool! I didn't notice that.
We were in Florida one winter, and the condo that we were staying in was very blah, didn't have any color. So I got pans of paint, and I dipped the crepe paper in, like a paint, and let it bleed. And then I put these flowers together. And of course, these I bought, and this is from another thing. But
Was it acrylic paint or watercolor?
it was watercolor.
Gorgeous.
I wasn't
Absolutely
doing
gorgeous.
acrylics then. So I put that on my table in the summertime.
So pretty. Now, did you do that painting on the wall up there?
Yes, that's oil, believe it or not. That is oil thinned down. Now, that's water mixable oil. So it's thinned down so the background washes are pale. And then the detail comes.
I love the light coming through. Love, love, love.
Like my little ski jumper, cross country ski
Did
guy.
did you make that? Darling. So cute.
Thank you.
Okay, what else?
How's her time running?
Is this Chagrin over here?
Yeah, that's the Chagrin River. At a low point, there were a lot of rocks in the river, but
Love the rock. I love painting
we have
rocks.
a lot of rain.
Excuse
You
the
can't see all those
reflection,
rocks.
everyone. I'll get over here to
Love that.
Yeah.
get it out some.
And see
I
on the
sat there, see,
trees.
this is one where I sat out in the river. Joe was sitting with me and reading a book, and I painted while he was reading a book.
See these trees right here? She didn't have to paint every leaf.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you don't really see the shape of a leaf, but you know they're fall leaves. No question. And see how the color of the green comes down into the trunk? We were talking about what goes up must come down. So if you have green here, you need green here. So she's got the green mixed in the trunk, but she's also got the orange of the leaves.
And even just hints of the reflection of the trees here and reflection of these little tall plants.
Yeah, the river was running, so you don't get
You're
as
not
much.
going to get a pure
you don't get-
reflection.
I love this trim around the mat. That's cool. I just love it. Anything else you want to show us?
This is, do you remember Carol Witt?
I do.
Well, this was her husband's, you need some light.
This is picking up pretty well.
Oh, look, Nemo.
Her husband's tropical fish tank.
Beautiful. Is that acrylic?
Watercolor.
It is watercolor.
Watercolor.
Wow.
See where I used salt?
Yes, and I was talking about that last night.
You can use tricky techniques like salt and saran wrap and all that stuff, but you try to cover up your mechanics like they tell you in flower arranging, cover your mechanics.
Yes.
So you want to not have it all.
all over.
Yeah.
Zoom in on where the salt was. Is that regular table salt or did you use sea salt? See, I've heard
doesn't
I've
matter.
heard mixed opinions. I've heard people
Depends
say
on
that
how
over
big.
time the salt will damage the paper.
Well, you don't keep it on there.
Right.
If you fill this, there is a little salt there. But this is a watercolor board.
Right.
Oh, this is an artistics board that you can't get anymore. It's a plastic with a grainy surface.
Colors are fabulous.
And the man who invented it passed away, and his wife tried to sell the company to Ampersand.
Oh, really?
And they called me to interview me about the thing. But see, they have the clay board and other things,
Right.
and they weren't interested in this. It's a very expensive process.
Yeah.
So I have a few sheets just in case.
Yeah. Okay, one more quick question. Do you have any of your sketchbooks here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, can you just flip through one of them and then we'll be done and we'll go.
Okay.
Look at Ronnie, just pan
I'll
around.
bring
here.
'em. I'll bring 'em
Oh,
down.
okay. Okay, this is a little dining room with watercolors all around, and they all kind of go together.
Look at this right here with the broken glass and the newspaper. She did that. Are y'all like in awe?
Did she make the tree by the birdhouse? There's one like that in there.
The one with the flowers on it? I would say probably so. I think she's talking about this one right
Debbie Harris says, I'm waiting for the mama bird to fly back to that nest.
I know, isn't it the truth? I'm sure she made it. Did you make this, Marianne? This tree? These flowers? Just saying. I'm sure she did.
The trouble with trying to get a picture of a picture, you get so much reflection. When you're watching it in person, you can make all that go away with your brain, but when you're taking a picture of it, it's more difficult.
I'm sure that's acrylic. Beautiful. It's hot. Are y'all in awe? Like I am? Unbelievable. You can see a little bit of her front yard right here.
You finding something?
Yeah, I'll put them down.
Here, because that one's not hers. But I'm sure this one is. Stop doing watercolor after y'all have seen these. That's hers. Isn't that amazing? Okay. Oh, look at these hydrangeas. Gorgeous. I'm coming. Okay, I want y'all to see these sketchbooks.
Well,
I'll let you take back over.
here's
Which way is it facing?
This right.
oh, this is in San Miguel, Mexico. And see, this is where she says, you know, I write something about the images that I paint. This is in Venice.
Notice if I had a sketchbook, it would be pencil sketches. In her case,
Look at that.
there's no pencil marks. It's
See, I don't have time. Well, we were in Venice for a week, but normally on a cruise I wouldn't have time to sit and draw and then paint. So I taught myself how to paint without drawing. Sometimes I run off the edge of the paper. Now, there's a painting upstairs, the finished painting of these kids, and we had just gotten off the boat in Venice. This is St. Mark's Square. It was freezing, raining, and windy, as you can tell. And this family was still taking photographs of them because they came, you know, and it was a vacation. And then the next day it snowed. It was wicked weather.
It snowed while you're on the cruise?
Snowed? No, we weren't on a cruise. We flew into.
Oh, okay.
And this is God, what's the bridge? Oh, I can't remember. This is the top of St. Mark's. They have these horses. These were replacements. The real ones are in a museum. But with their weather and stuff, they decided to preserve them. This is a church across the river, or the Grand Canal. And I decided, sometimes I will write the names of people that I meet. And,
That's a good example there. You see it and you see that it's a church, but look how much is not painted.
yeah.
There's so much that's just...
You leave something for the entertainment of the viewer.
Right.
See, Franco and Nikolai have been wonderful concierge, as we have talked to them at length and borrowed scissors and pens. Or I don't know why I borrowed scissors and pens.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
This was our view of another thing across the canal, is right down here. And from our room, we could see this was a bed and breakfast type thing.
And again, did you paint the arches?
What arches?
These?
What? Here? Yeah.
Yeah. You painted around them, negative, and left.
Oh, yeah, I
left the arches to
painted
your
the
imagination.
insides and then around them with the wash so that they would remain white. This is one time that I don't use the 3 washes usually because I'm in too much of a hurry
Yeah.
to. And there's Joe asleep.
And that's a great portrait of Joe, by the way.
Yeah. And here's the Doge's Palace. And, oh no, this isn't. This is St. Mark's. And right around the corner is the Doge's Palace. And this is the bell tower in the middle of Venice.
I just love it. I told y'all they're works of art in themselves.
Yeah. But you see, if there's something really to tell, I write the whole thing out. One of these days, I'll read them again and go through. We were on the top floor of this hotel, so we had skylights that looked out, which was a much nicer view than looking out a flat window, because
Oh,
all
yeah.
you do is see tile roofs
Right.
and everything.
Here's her book, My Life as an Artist.
The
That's the middle of Chagrin Falls. The triangle with the bandstand, and is there a picture of the falls in there somewhere?
I'm sure.
No. The popcorn shop is famous. Sits right
Yeah,
on
we
top
saw
of it.
that. We were there last year.
we'll be eating just about across
We're
the.
gonna be eating right across the
Yep.
wall of the river. Oh, here's the waterfall.
Yeah.
The waterfall looks like a photograph.
And this is the view you'll see at lunch today.
Y'all, look at this.
Now this is the style of my original teacher. That took me it's a big painting, and it took me about a month to do, because I don't really go for all that detail, but I just was in the mood for doing that, so I did.
See the snow and the snow on the pine tree? Oh,
And the snow
Here,
not perfectly white.
See, you can see, yeah, it's yellow and pink. And
because it
shades
reflects
of
what's
blue.
around it.
So the snow has a little more oomph to it than just plain old snow. Then I got into broken glass.
I love that painting in there, broken glass in the newspaper.
Yeah, that one was another best show award. See, these were,
Look.
yeah, this is one, he's passed away, but
I think if we're gonna
This is
make our
a really-
reservation, we're gonna have to wind
Yeah.
up here.
Look at
Yeah.
y'all. Look at this. Look at these. Oh. Mary Ann.
a lot of bird's nests. You run out of ideas of what to call them. I've gotten
Look.
nest. Oh, here's that, the
Yeah,
one
that's
you
the one.
said, this was when I won the award. Here's Cabanas, and this is in Pensacola Beach.
Wow.
So
Wow. Just wow.
let's go eat.
Let's
Marie
do it.
Moran said, "I'm just speechless. What an amazing artist."
For sure. Okay, you guys. Marianne and I are going to sign off. Thank you for being here with us today and enjoying this. I hope you will spread the word, maboyson.com, and go and enjoy her. I love you guys. Go out and be a blessing and be blessed. Bye.